Hey everyone, just wanted to make this quick lesson before we go to the next one where I'm going to actually talk about the practice that we're going to do together, which is very, very important. I want to point out a few things about the way we type code, especially your coding style. In the previous lesson, we talked about the different ways that we can convert data into different types. For example, in this case, we did a simple code and we converted the strings into an integer and then we added them together, and very simple stuff, right? Now, I wanted to let you know that there are different ways to code this as well. Also, I made a mistake, and in the conversion types, I introduced integer, which was, this is how you convert something in integer, a float, which how you convert something in float, and then we got the string, which is how you convert something to a string. But remember, Boolean is for another lesson. This is not a conversion type. I accidentally put it in there. That was my mistake, but just remember this is not how you convert something to Boolean. Booleans are a little bit more complicated, and that's not how you convert something into Boolean. Just keep that in mind, guys, okay? We'll talk about Booleans later on as well, but I just want to let you know that was a mistake. I didn't pay attention correctly. I was trying to think ahead, and I messed it up. So just remember, these are the three the functions that help you to convert another functions into another function, essentially a function into another one, right? So I wanted to talk about clearing your code and simplifying your code real quick. You've seen me do this a lot, and I want to talk about this because I want to make sure you understand how you put this together. So for example, we have this code here, right? And one of the things is that we got this variable here and the second variable, and there is a way to actually just bring this entire thing into our print without having to turn it into a variable. And the point of this is to just make your code cleaner and make your code simpler, all right? And the way you do this is that you just simply integrate the integer conversion function directly into your print. And we have done this before, right? Remember, we put inputs in print, so stuff like that. Remember, we've done this multiple times in the previous section. So you could do the same thing here. Essentially, what you do is, instead of let's actually turn these into a comment, okay? And what we're going to do is we're essentially going to pull these functions directly, pull these variables directly. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to directly pull these things, and we're going to say print, right? And the way you do this is that you start by adding an integer function. So then we're telling this, hey, this is we're going to print this, but I want you to print this as an integer. That's very, very important. And then we close the parenthesis, and obviously we're going to continue because we need to add another integer, right? So we're going to add another integer, and we're going to add the second variable here. There you go, just like that. And now we're going to actually close this. So if you think about it, this print function, we usually print function looks like this, right? There's a print, and we got something like this, two parentheses, right? One that opens it, one that closes it. And we got our print function, and we got the parenthesis that opens it and the parenthesis that closes it. And then inside this, we got our code. Integer, this is the conversion function, right? And then we're taking this variable from here, from the user, and turning it into an integer. And then we're adding that into another conversion function, which is going to be the second variable. So second variable, and then we turn it to an integer, and boom, just converting it. So just like that, this literally does the same thing that this does, just without these two extra lines. So if you run it, we're pretty much going to get the same result. So I'm just going to put 10 and 20, we should get 30. There you go. So guys, very simple, but again, just like a way to keep the code cleaner. And this is something you're going to see a lot in more advanced programming. And a lot of people do this, and I'm sure it's something you're going to get used to as well. If you have to define a variable for it, that's completely fine, by the way, because sometimes keep in mind, when you actually put this conversion function directly into a print, you're not going to be able to use it anywhere else in the code, because sometimes you actually need to turn this into an integer to pull it somewhere else in the code or multiple places. So instead of doing this multiple times throughout the code, you actually turn it into an actual variable, so you can use it throughout different places. But again, if you just have to use it once, instead of turning it into a variable, you can just directly pull it right here. So that's just like a different style of coding, really. I wouldn't think about it too much, honestly, but I just want to point this out. When you see me like, mixing these functions together, you're putting print and then like an integer or float with each other, I just don't want you to get confused. It's just a different style of coding, but it's pretty much the same thing. It generates the same results essentially. So that's something I wanted to point out. So guys, let's get into the next lesson. That's where we talk about this special assignment or practice lesson that I have for you. So that's going to be a fun one. I'll see you in the next one.